she's doing her lips like that, she probably needs her vodka, right? Not everybody gets a trophy. Country home, take me home.
I just see this veil of secrecy.
They were all out of Playboy, so I had to get her Hustler.
There's a big difference.
Why did you give me a bologna sandwich, bitch?
I'm like bubbling over with stuff.
Hi, everyone. It's Meredith, your evolutionary astrologer, and today is such a treat. I've got Connie Jo here with me, and we're going to be talking all about the fourth house, and we are going to go in deep, deep, deep. Hi, Connie.
Hi, Mare. I'm so excited. I love the fourth house.
I love having you here, and I love this series, and I hope everybody has already watched. We've done the 12th house through the fourth, so we only have the third, the second, and the first after this. Hopefully we can get through it. I'm going to just talk a tiny bit about the fourth house, and you just chime in here anywhere you want. And then Connie Jo and I are going to go through all 12 zodiac signs through the fourth house. It's a really special place, but sometimes you hear the fourth house cusp called the IC, and it's one of the four angles, and the angles initiate things. But I think this is the introverted part of the angular houses. And the angular houses are the first, the fourth, the seventh house, and the 10th house. So your rising sign, the IC, the descendant, and the midheaven.
And the midheaven being the most public part of the chart. And the IC, let's give them the technical name, Meredith, the MM Coeli is the most private part of the chart.
Yes.
And that's why I love it so much.
And I do too, because I think the 10th house can be a little bit like your legacy and your calling, but it's like sort of where you step into your greatness, and it's like the rooftop of the house. But I see this place as your nest egg, your security, and what you look like when you take your mask off, you know, the ugly bits of yourself that you might not want the public to see, right? It's the opposite.
Exactly.
It's the opposite of your Instagram profile.
Isn't it funny, because we wear our makeup if we're with, well, a lot of men wear makeup too, in the 10th house for our public persona. But when we take off our makeup, we do that in the fourth house.
That's when we're comfortable. And my husband is like, when we come home after a fancy night, he's like, why are you taking off all the sequins? Why are you taking off your eyelashes? And can you not keep that on for a little bit? I said, no, we're home. I'm with you, honey. I'm in my safe space.
That's it. That is the perfect description of the private part of it.
Yeah. Right. I said, you should be so honored. There's no men get to see me look like this.
Exactly. I love it.
With my facial mask on and my hair pulled back. Right.
Yes.
But one of the things is we can look to this house as a roadmap, or how we like to create security for ourselves. I want you to think of this house literally as the womb, WOMB, and also kind of your womb, like your safe place. This is the womb in the chart. It's literally and metaphorically the womb.
Because it's ruled by Cancer and the moon. It's the nurturer. It's the mothering. I have a question for you, Meredith. I think astrology has changed so much over the years, and we are evolutionary astrologers. And I feel like that the fourth house is now, it used to be, at one time it was the house of the father, then the house of the mother, but I believe it's the house of the parents, whatever form that takes.
I totally agree, but I would also even add maybe one more layer to that, which you're probably saying. I think this is the shaping parent, like the emotionally nurturing parent that shaped your emotional world, right? Here's something that's really interesting. Like, I'm a single mom. You want to hear something so interesting, Connie. So you guys, now that you're on this channel and you're really watching our videos, hopefully more in depth, and we have so many members and so many of you, I'm so proud of you, are doing advanced astrology. This really is a deeper video. Like, you're not going to find that that this series is superficial in any way. It's really, Connie and I go really, really deep, and we go past the stereotypes. But one of the things that's fascinating is you really got to see what planets you have there, because if you have your, and we're not going to go through the planets today, and we might do a second series where we do the planets, but if you have your moon there, It really could be your mother. If you have your Saturn there and your sun there, it really could be your father. But listen to this.
Yeah.
Listen to this. Connie, I'm a single mom and my daughter has Capricorn on that IC. So that IC, that fourth house, the traditional, we think of mother house, is ruled by
Yeah.
Saturn, which I consider the father, and her Saturn's in the 10th. So
That is interesting.
isn't that fascinating? Because I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting about that is when she was 7 years old and I was on a tall ladder on a snowy day and I was putting up Christmas lights after Thanksgiving. Oh my God, help me. It was freezing cold here. She looked up at me. She was so cute. And she just made this up. It just blurted out of her mouth. And she said, "You're the best mom, dad in the whole world, mama."
Oh,
And
that is sweet.
isn't that sweet? But don't you think that's Capricorn on the 4th, Saturn, the ruler in Leo in the
In
10th,
the tent.
in the
Yeah.
house of mama?
Yes. I mean, I think you're covering both parental axis, being the single mom that's the best mom dad ever. That is so cute. I
But
love
I'm
it.
just saying, so you're not wrong, but I think it's the shaping parent.
Yeah.
The parent that really is, I do consider, the fourth house, mostly the house of the mother. And when we go through these signs, if you feel like this describes your father, not your mother, that's okay too. He might have been a stay-at-home dad, or he might have been the emotionally available dad, or he might have been more of the shaping parent, right?
Right.
So I
Yeah.
think I think you're absolutely right, Connie. It goes both ways now. It's the new normal.
You can't really define it just mother anymore, which is kind of strange to me sometimes, but I think we have to kind of go with the flow, don't you?
Yeah, and our family dynamics are certainly changing. And
Yeah.
also, everybody talks about, and this is the stereotype where this is associated with the home, your home, your house, but it's also, I want you guys to think of it way more deeply than your home. What if, and God forbid, but what if you were living in the Ukraine right now and you lost your home? Well, you still have your fourth house, because truly and truthfully, it's the soul and the roots of your very
Right.
essence. It's literally your ancestral story.
Yes, you're
And I
nailing
think
it.
I think it can be your family, your heritage, your roots, and all that your ancestors inherited. When I think about this placement, the fourth house, I think of Native Americans. I think of indigenous people because they live so close to the land, their heritage, their roots, and the sacredness of it. And they really respect the land and have so much ceremony. Think of that when you think of the fourth house. Like, what is the ceremony in your heritage, in your family? What was
Wow.
passed down to you, right?
That is so funny because I always think about the Celtic people,
Yes.
and that's where my mind goes. So yeah, that's really interesting. But I think the same thing, the ceremonies that and the closeness to the earth and the caring for nature and family and how important tradition
Yes,
was
and
is.
that's the exact same thing, that those indigenous people of the land in which you came from and that which you were born into. Okay, I want to tell you another secret part of the fourth house that I was really, really meditating on the depth of the fourth house. I think the fourth house is the deepest house in the whole zodiac, even more than the eighth and the 12th, although all the water houses are deep.
I
But
agree.
this is deep the depth inside of you. This is the how you make meaning out of the events that take place in your life. I think of it as the poetry or the song that is in your heart. It is what your heart is saying when you hold your mother's hand when she is dying. What song was that in your heart? What feelings did you have? How do you make meaning out of your life? That comes out of the fourth house. So it's very profound, this house.
But I'm gonna lighten things up a little bit because
Okay.
that is really deep. It's also the house of endings.
Yes.
And
You're lightening it
the
up.
funny thing is,
This
well,
is
a little bit. I mean,
this
that,
is lightening it up because I
okay,
too wanted to talk about that. So go for it. Go for it, Connie.
so what's funny is that I looked at the solar return charts of not only myself, but several other people that got divorced. I looked at the solar return chart of that year. almost every single time Uranus was in that fourth house of the solar return chart. And it was depicting endings, the divorce being an ending. I just thought that was really interesting. And I mean, I know we don't do horary astrology, but that's how they look for endings in a horary chart.
Connie Joe, that is so great. I would love for you to do some horary videos, by the way. Wouldn't you all like that?
Let
You'll
us know.
Yeah, yeah, you'll have to let us know. I think you're absolutely right because all the water signs have an element of death or loss attached to them. The eighth house, the 12th house, the fourth house, probably because they're so deep and they're so internal. But I do think that, tell me what you think about this, Connie. I think that the fourth house can really represent the second half of your life as well, the beginning part of your life, but also the ending part of your life with what you
Yes,
just said, because
I totally agree.
when you are dying, I actually think the fourth house does
Is the
show,
gateway to the soul.
it will show you at the end of your life, the deeper parts of you, the meaning that you made out of your life will be shown on your deathbed. And so I think the fourth house shows us what we truly, truly most value in life. And it shows us an awareness of our own mortality, how we become increasingly aware of what is truly important to us. And then we start living from that meaningful place. And I think we see what our last words spoken might be on our deathbed with those signs and planets in the fourth house.
I'm kind of speechless. I totally agree with you that there's a strong part of me that feels like that is the gateway to the soul, that fourth house, the very bottom of that chart, that is where the soul leaves. And
Yes. And is born
then
and
it,
comes
you know, it,
through.
yeah,
Yeah. Gosh, I love that, Connie. And then, okay, I also want to say this is a very subjective place. This is a place where you are not objective because it's the I, it is the me, it is literally what is inside of me. And the reason why it is a me house, like the first house, but it is the emotional me, is because this is the place I go to. So think about this. All of the listeners, think about this. Where do you go to when you withdraw from the world? Do you go into your bed? Do you go into your bathtub? Where do you go? Because when you go in there, right? When you go in there away from the whole world, how do you recharge? What do you do? And this is so subjective.
that's good.
For example, and give me your opinion about this, Connie, and you can even tell me from your own experience, maybe. I was talking to my brother because we're having a struggle with my dad right now, and he's not here. He lives in Texas. And I just said, I'm calling you because I'm here, boots on the ground with dad, and you're like in a round room with no windows, just internalizing all of this. Cancer. He is a Cancer. That's very fourth house, right? And so I
Yeah.
said, so I want you to tell me your feelings. And he was telling me his feelings, but his perspective was a little bit off because he was so in the me, right? He wasn't dealing with it here, boots on the ground in the external world. And
Yeah.
so it's subjective. So it's imaginary. And so it's not always accurate
Wow.
because it's not working with always the facts. It's working with our own subjective feelings deep
Yeah.
inside, disconnected from the outside world.
Wow. That's pretty profound, my friend. I had not really thought of it like that.
Thank you, Connie. But I think it's where we deepen ourselves, where we reflect, where we sort of live alone, like within my own feelings, my own subjective thoughts, but I can really create a false perspective here too. I mean, it's not the intellectual house, it's not
No.
the third house.
What that made me think of course, the fourth house is ruled by the moon, and the moon holds all of our memories, not only from this life, but past lives. And I think that when the moon is like, if you draw the moon in the tarot, the moon is shadowy. It doesn't show like the sunlight does everything. So, what you're saying about not really seeing everything when you go into that deep place, I think it's lunar related because when
Yes.
the moon shines, you don't see everything.
Yes, yes. Connie, also this takes me to another thought. In this fourth house, and I'm going to talk more about this through each sign. In this fourth house, this shows your shaping parent. I say mom, but it can be dad, it can be both. It can be your grandmother, it can be your aunt, but the parent that shaped you shows you not who they were accurately. It
Oh,
shows you,
exactly.
right? It shows you how you received them, but it does not
Yes.
show you their truthful intentions. So
I
there's
couldn't agree more.
yeah, it's that same thing where it's so subjective. So it's not who your mom really was to you. It's what
How
you
you
believe.
perceived it.
Yeah, exactly. What you believed you got from her.
I'm like bubbling over with stuff. If that is the house of the inner child as well, isn't that the house we would go back to find healing from childhood memories now that we're adults, where we see things more clearly?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right because this is, I think, where you go and recharge and disconnect from, and hopefully disconnect. And how do you self soothe? How do you
Yeah.
heal? Yeah. If you are a mom, go look at the fourth house and see how your kids see you. And if you have four kids, you have four different relationships, but you're being the same mom. You're showing up the same way to four different kids. It's being interpreted in four different ways based on the sign of the fourth house cusp. Connie, you talk about how with Placidus house systems, how you can have two or three, energies in a house. And because people might get confused when we go through the signs, what should they look at?
Meredith's right. You can look at two different signs usually. So the IC, you're going to see it, and it cuts in Placidus, the third house and the fourth house in two. But sometimes you've got part on this side of the IC, and it's still part of that fourth house, and some of it on this side. So listen to both signs. If your fourth house has two signs, like for instance, my fourth house has Pisces and Aries, but my IC is in Pisces. But I would still listen to what Mayor's going to say about Aries. So listen to both signs and where they fall on that cusp. And if you do whole house astrology, then you'll listen to one.
Right. And sometimes you can have an intercepted sign and you can have three.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. You're right.
And I guess I just want to end with this before we go into the different signs. And that is you know how I always talk about the eighth house as financial inheritance that you receive from a
Mhm.
parent. And I think of the fourth house as the psychological and the emotional inheritance that you received from your family, your tribe, your clan, your parent, your shaping parent. So this is the psychological inheritance. So did you get ripped off and cheated, or
Yeah,
did you win the lottery, with this psychological and emotional inheritance?
yeah, that's a good point because I do think that the fourth house rules property, meaning it literally rules the home. I mean, when we go talk to whatever your home is, wherever an apartment, a house, if you're homeless, God bless you, then whatever you're covering your head with that night. But it's our home or what we consider home. So, like if Venus is ruling that fourth house, you're probably going to enjoy having some very Venusian things around you in your home.
Yes, exactly.
I look at the fourth house and the 10th when I'm looking for someone to move. If they're ready to move house, I look at the fourth and that 10th house to see if that's a good time period. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes, yes. So you guys have a lot to think about. You have a lot to think about, but this is a very me-centered house in a way, but it does include everybody who you grew up with, your formative years, how you grew up, what you were indoctrinated into. I do like how you said the actual physical home and house and property that you live on, Connie. So let's go into Aries. And so
Okay.
I'll go first. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so if you have Aries on the IC, so the first thing I want you to look at is I do think the most important important sign is not the sign that has the most degrees. It's not the largest sign necessarily. Remember, the cusps are so important. And I have a video on the cusps, so I want you to go watch that video. The sign on the cusp. So for me, I only have 2 degrees of a sign, and then I have a full 30 degrees of the next sign. So I do need to listen to both. But that cusp sign is absolutely critical. And I think it's the most important because it's the boss, it's the landlord of that house. And then that other sign is sort of renting. That's just kind of a little metaphor that I
like
give.
that.
But listen to both or listen to all 3. If you've got Aries on the cusp of your IC, first of all, you're an emotionally driven person and you probably have very big emotions about the family you created and the family that you came from, because this is a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and you probably are highly motivated and put a lot of your will, your energy, your vitality, you probably invest it in your home, in your family, and you probably in some way did that or grew up in a home that was like that as well. You might have had extraordinarily powerful parents. I oftentimes see that this is a military placement. You could have come from a military background, a military placement, been born on a military base. You're an American born in Germany or something like that, because this has a drill sergeant attached to it, right? Because that's Aries. But you would also see ambition in your parents, probably strong-willed, domineering, blunt, very cut and dry. You would not be shaped in a confusing, loosey-goosey, make it up as you wish. Like, there were definitely rules to be followed by the person in charge. Aries does actually believe in hierarchical order. So you might have come from a family that had hierarchy in it, the alpha, the beta, the Charlie. As a mom or as a shaping parent, that parent probably was also ferociously independent in their own life, their own passions, their own career, their own hobbies. Not that you were neglected, but they definitely had an identity, probably separate from you. Now, if you are their identity, meaning you were their job, you were their passion, God bless you.
Right. My IC is in Pisces, but Aries being a large part of my 4th house, and my dad is military. I mean, it really fits.
Yeah.
And it was strict. It was
your autonomy, your individuation, your go out there and champion the world, Connie Joe, was that instilled in you as a young girl?
It was. And Meredith, my dad used to tell me all the time, you can do anything you want to do, little girl. And he meant it. And you know what?
Sweet.
I believed it.
That is so sweet. One thing I say about Aries, I had this Aries person call me and say, what am I supposed to do for a living? I said, here's the gift of Aries. Okay. This is a little extra tidbit, but if you have this in the 4th house, you might've been raised with this belief. Aries literally can do anything they put their mind to. That's Aries. It isn't defined like that. Like if you were a Virgo, it'd be a little bit more defined. But if you are passionate about it, Aries actually believes, and you were probably raised in a way where you can get the trophy. Like you can be president of the universe, Connie Joe. I don't know if you have talk like that. I also think that this placement can create some competitiveness, can create a feeling of champions. Like you can be a champion, you might have a champion parent. But on the negative side, you can also kind of have a mom who could be a little bit heavy-handed with you or even jealous of you, because it does have a Mars attachment to it. So it could be too much, too hard driving, too driven. I do think, though, that there is a little bit of youthfulness here, because it's Mars. And so these people have energy. What I mean by that is they can come from a family that has longevity genes passed down on.
Oh my God, yes.
Like how old is your dad?
My dad just turned 94. So, and my grandmother, his mother lived to be 104.
What?
I definitely have the longevity gene. We'll see what happens.
Did grandmother get a birthday cake at 104?
I'm sure she got anything she wanted.
With 104 candles on it? Did she make
We didn't want to set the place on fire, Meredith.
Did she make the morning news? Like, we are down here with Ethel, who just turned.
She did make she did have a newspaper report about her done. It was really sweet.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, how cute. How cute.
Yeah.
I don't know what your mom did for a living, but, and she has, Connie Joe has Pisces on the IC, but she has
She
an
did
Aries.
me and my
She,
brother.
oh, she did you and your brother. Well, I was going
Yeah.
to say, oftentimes there's an entrepreneurial quality to one of the parents with this. But I would not want to get into any kind of trouble if I had a fourth house Aries IC. I would be a little bit afraid of the authority that was in charge of me, you know? Like, did you ever get into bad trouble, Connie Joe?
Oh my gosh. I mean, my dad, I shouldn't even tell this story, but I'm going to. He actually had this Camaro that I wanted. He was going to buy it for me. And my cousin and I snuck off to Alabama, across the state line. I'm not even going to tell you everything we did, but we got caught and I did not get that car. I mean, there was a price to pay if you played at my house. That's all I gotta say.
Wow. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's heavy handed and it can feel at the time, I'm sure you have now, you have your wisdom, but it can feel just too heavy handed. And also, kind of like Scorpio, there's a power struggle usually. And usually the child, so if you have the IC, you might parent like this yourself, but this is usually, you know, the family environment that you grew up in and how the shaping parent worked for you. You might have felt like at the time that they just squashed you like a bug. Have you hung out with Aries before? They don't even know they're squashing you and they just can flatten you.
I hadn't heard it put like that, but yeah.
Yeah, you didn't get that Camaro. Did you cry?
Yeah. I wanted that Camaro for a long time. I did. That's the car I wanted, and he did not get that car for me. He said no.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Connie. And grandma,
I know,
and
me too.
grandma, 104-year-old grandma didn't step in and say, hey, you get the Camaro.
And she would have if she'd been close. We didn't live close. We were at a distance, but yeah, nobody really took up for me, Mayor. I did not get that
I would have
car.
given you the Camaro. When they go internally, because it's the deepest place of the soul, you know, into that vulnerable healing place, what does that look like? It might be a walk or a bike ride doing cardio of some sort, maybe not, but some sort of
Physical activity.
yeah, movement, or maybe even playing a game by themselves. Because I
Playing a game for
playing, yeah, I was going to
for
say
sure.
more like taking your mind off of the thing rather than going down and figuring it all out and sitting still
Yes.
with self. I kind of feel like Aries wants to run away from the problems and even think of your dad. Like, did you ever see I think it's hard to see an Aries IC parent, shaping parent, cry or be vulnerable. And so I think vulnerability is very hard for this placement. And like I know you are sensitive and you do cry and you technically have the Pisces there, but I think Aries, when they go within, they have to sort of run away from the hardship or the problem
Yes.
to deal with it.
I agree 100%. And what you said, you hit the nail on the head. Physical activity or an activity that will occupy the brain, my game on the phone, where I don't have to think about what is going on. And I didn't see my dad vulnerable very often. He has an Aries moon as well. But you're right about that.
Isn't that funny? And so if you guys have Aries on the IC, I do kind of want to know, and it does depend where your Mars is. Like if your
Sure.
Mars is in the 12th house, you might be able to sit with yourself a little bit, but Aries does not really like to sit in a contemplative environment with themselves. They feel like the problem festers. And I think they want something like a little bit more like, put me to use, like let me do something. I don't want to just go
Yeah.
sit by the bedside and hold the hand. I want to do something. I want to fix it in some way, right? Like if you feel like
Yeah.
you can't fix your woes, isn't that a real struggle for you? You don't want to just sit in it.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Because Aries has to have a goal and a mission in accomplishing probably the great fix.
Oh,
All right. Well, tell us about Taurus.
a lot different. I mean, ruled by Venus. But the one thing about Taurus is the security, the stability. If you're lucky, if you had that kind of Taurus IC background where it was really good, you felt secure, you felt stable. There's something very traditional about Taurus. I associate the traditional things a lot with Taurus and Cancer, but I think that your parents were probably very traditional, but also very set in their ways. And they wanted you to follow the traditions for you to be set in your way, set in their ways. You kind of had to do it their way. But what it gives you is the ability to physically take care of your own family when you get older, even if you didn't have that stability and security at home. And a lot of times, this will be a family background where you learn to save money and handle it wisely. That it's like you're given that gift of how to properly use your money. I think this is also a placement where property is important, owning property, possibly going into real estate if you have this on your IC. If you have Taurus there, it depends on where your Venus is, but you could be very good with property management, that sort of thing. Also, when I think about Taurus being there, Meredith, I think of the gardens, lots of pretty outdoor stuff, because Taurus really loves the outdoors and they love to be close to the earth, and that they would, want to spend. That would probably be the healing, the inner child healing, that escape that we get from the fourth house, where we might be a movie star in the 10th house, but in the fourth house, we get to go out and pull weeds and we love it. I mean, it could be that simple.
Don't you think this is like grandmother's secret taco recipe?
Oh my God, it's so funny because I had in my notes that even when you're older, you might remember the smells of your childhood. And I also have that your mother might have rewarded you with food,
Yeah,
or
like have a
or
cookie,
your
make it better.
grandmother.
Yeah, have a cookie, make it better.
Yes.
Um, I do think that you could have the tradition of cooking passed down. Like you open up a restaurant because you've got grandma's secret spaghetti sauce from
Oh,
Sicily.
yes.
Yeah.
And you know what, Meredith? My mother-in-law passed away not long ago, as you know. And when we went for the memorial, one thing I got that I wanted was one of her cookbooks that she had notes in. And so that to me is very Taurus IC, you know,
Yes.
passing down the family recipes and cookbooks and memoirs, that sort of thing.
Oh, I love that,
Yeah.
Connie Joe. I'm so glad you got that. And you'll cook those recipes in her honor.
Yes.
That's really, really sweet. I'm so sorry for your loss too.
I really like the Taurus placement. And like I said, not everybody has the same kind of childhood, but I do think one thing you can get out of it is the ability to give your own family stability and security, even if you didn't receive it yourself.
Right. I do oftentimes find, though, that these kids grew up in a frugal environment that taught them, how to save or how to count money early, or, we only have $50. How are we going to divvy it up? How are we going to spend it? So they
Yeah.
do become quite good investors in their own home. Okay, so what do you think the healing tool to go in, like when you disconnect from the problem and you just go in and you make meaning out of your wounds and you want to heal them? And also we could even play a game where what would the last words be for Taurus? Like how I said, these are the words on your deathbed. I think it might be more frosting on this cookie, please.
Yeah, I know.
Why are you cheating me? I'm on my way out. I want my last meal. I want lobster and garlic sauce. Why are you
Yeah,
trying to give me a bologna sandwich, bitch?
yeah, exactly. I mean, that pretty much spells it out. Because I do think they love, the smells and the sensuality and the food, and really that were a big part of their childhood and what they grew up with. I think that's really beautiful. I like Taurus on the IC. I think it's a really nice placement to have, but I do think that they going outdoors is a big deal to help them sort out issues.
Yeah, like walking barefoot on the sandy beach by themselves and listening to the waves, or walking their dog. Or it could, I think with this one it's pretty easy, because there's lots of healing remedies for a Taurus, like just sitting in a comfortable place or a favorite chair or the hammock, or like you said, working in the garden, like
Yeah.
simple pleasures, right? I think it's much
Yeah.
more difficult for Aries to find the remedy because they want to, how do I say this? Don't you think that Taurus on the IC has an ability to just sit with the pain, sit with the feelings, not even doing anything with them, just sort of honoring?
I think they have a much better ability to do that than Aries for sure. I do sort of think it depends on where their Venus is, because if Venus is in an earth sign, I do think that's exactly what they would do. If Venus is an air sign, they may need to talk it out with someone.
That's a really good point. And we should remind people, hopefully, you know your rulers. If not, we have a video on that, the rulers of the chart. What Connie's saying is the ruler of Taurus is Venus. So you do need to go look at your Venus and see what your Venus is doing, because it's that Venus that is running, is the generator of that fourth house. And if
Yeah.
that Venus is in Scorpio, it's going to be completely different than if your Venus is in Aries. You need to go back and listen to the Aries part of this video and put the two together. It's a lot. We're not doing sun sign astrology, people.
No, no.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So should
Okay.
we do Gemini?
Absolutely.
Oftentimes this is Pisces rising, right?
Yeah.
And so these people are very sensitive. But with the fourth house in Gemini, I think they probably grew up in a family where the mom or the shaping parent really promoted intelligence and learning. And there's also a little bit, and my mom has this placement, and so is my brother. And they're really funny with each other. I'm super deep with my mom, but my brother is super funny. And sometimes when we're down and out, I'll just send him a little prompt. Can you be funny right now? He's like, sure, no problem. You know, he's just really funny. There's a bit of a charm here. These people usually, I'll just tell you, usually grew up in an environment where the family valued communication or talking. I'll tell you, it's kind of enviable, because this is if let's say you're the friend of this, you're the childhood friend of this family. Your friend has a Gemini IC, and you go over to the Gemini IC house, and you're just a little kid. And the parents talk to you and they want to know who you are and they're interested. There is exceptional communication usually in this house. Like, tell me about you. What are your college goals? What are your future goals? You working down at the gas station? Are you liking that? How's that going for you, Johnny?
Yeah.
Oh, I just did my 1950s household
Oh,
impression.
I love it.
But there's
Yeah.
usually a student teacher element, and you're either the teacher for your parent or you're the student to your parent. Education, learning, knowledge, communication, developing your skills, having numerous hobbies. Like you're going to art class, then cello class, then you're going to do your gymnastics, and then you're going to do your ice dancing. And that's just Fridays. Also, your vacations, your family vacations might be a little bit more domesticated. Like, we're going to go to Mount Rushmore. Woo!
Yeah.
We're going to go check out the Dakotas. Woo! Anybody
Yeah.
want to go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming? Let's road trip.
We're going to go to the museum. And, yeah. I always associated Gemini on the IC with someone who might have moved around a lot as a child.
Absolutely. I think their roots were pulled out from under them. And that is kind of a little bit of the dark side. Maybe there is also changing partners. Mother could
Yeah.
have changing partners or the shaping parent. But I do think that the dark side to this is there was an unavailability with the shaping parent because they were either too busy, they traveled, they were getting, like in my family, I don't have this placement. My brother has this placement, and so does my mother. But so my brother experienced the family as a Gemini energy, which it was super busy. There were 4 kids in and out, stepsisters. And his mom, what was his mom doing during his formative years? Getting her PhD. I mean, is this not
Ah,
quintessential? Yeah, it's crazy.
that's interesting.
And so
Yeah.
she was a little bit unavailable because she was also a high school principal, which had you go to those Friday night football games and every sporting event and all the graduations. And it was a full-time job. And she was home so late, up at 5 a.m. And then at night, she was getting her PhD at Arizona State University. There was an availability around communication, talking, setting things up, but it was 1,000 moving pieces. My parents promoted being smart, getting an education. Let's talk about the vulnerability and the sanctuary and going in. I kind of want to confess something kind of like cynically funny, just because, that's my sense of humor by now. The sanctuary and going within one, what does it look like? It doesn't. I don't think there is one with these. I think
I was trying to think of something, and for the life of me, I really couldn't. Do you think their last dying words might be nice to your brothers and sisters? Something like that.
Yeah, like take care of each other. Yeah. I do. I really do think these people are pretty exceptional communicators with family. They really want themselves to be known. Like they are not hidden. Do you know what I mean?
No, they're not.
So they might even be surprising what they say, but be nice to your brothers and sisters. Yeah, that's cute. I think that's really adorable, but also something like never stop learning, never lose your curiosity, always be relevant, keep growing, never, like they'll speak their truths, whatever those truths are. But when I was saying, where's their sanctuary? I think their sanctuary is this. Hi, Mom. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm kind of lonely. How's Dad? I think it's calling a best friend or calling somebody to talk it out. I think these people really struggle with being alone. I almost think living all by themselves in a home alone would be extra lonely for these people.
You know what, Glenn? I was just thinking this through because Glenn has this placement.
He doesn't like to be home alone, does he?
Well, no, he doesn't like to be home alone. And he will actually talk to the TV if he has no one else to. I've heard him. I'm like, who are you talking to?
Is he just yelling at the quarterback in the football game, or is he really
he's watching a Western telling you, I don't
That's
what about Cancer?
Yeah. Tell us, this is like its favorite placement, right?
This is a double dose. If you have, this means you probably have Aries rising and you truly desire a relationship with your family and the traditions of your family, your ancestry, all of that is so connected. But all Cancers don't have that. They didn't grow up like that. And it seems like they're always searching for a mother figure or someone to be emotionally attached to them or someone to emotionally attach to. But they greatly honor their family. And I think a lot of people with this position, Cancer on the IC, they put their family above themselves. They will take care of their family before they will put their family first, but it's almost like they can provide emotional security. I was talking about physical security with Taurus, like financial, but they provide emotional security. That's what they crave, and that's what they'll give if they receive that and they know how to give it correctly. And if not, that's really sad when somebody with Cancer on the IC it did not have a great childhood or family life because that's kind of what they crave more than anything.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's really true. And then I think later in life, what they do is they try their hardest to become the kind of parent, the kind of mother or father that is ideal in their mind, subjectively ideal. Right.
Yeah.
So usually these people become great nurturers and sometimes they do get a great mom. Sometimes they just can never even leave mom and they don't cut the umbilical cord. And there's an enmeshment. But you're right, because the moon moves so quickly. We do have to go look at the moon and see if the moon is in a happy place or a not so happy place. And I have a whole moon series. If you guys have this placement, it's very emotional, this placement. This is very deeply feeling, very deeply psychic, very deeply emotional, very deeply sensitive, very deeply connected to the things in which it loves. It could be an animal, could be a parent, could be your house. But
even a stuffed animal from childhood that they can't let go of. I'm telling you, if there is a placement for hoarding, I think this could be one of them because they don't want to let go of anything they associate with their childhood. whether it
That
were
is so good, Connie.
good
That
or
is so
bad.
good. Yes, yes. These people do not want to separate from those things that they nurtured, even in a, like you said, a stuffed animal. And they might even still have their stuffed animal, in a
Yeah,
box in their garage. But
absolutely.
they
Yeah.
they probably wanted or felt that there was an emotional, usually, unless your moon is in a perilous position in the chart, but usually they feel, I think, that they had support, nurturing, affection from their shaping parent, or their parent at least tried to be a great emotional support system and make a home life comfortable and nurturing and loving. And I think these people can create absolutely extraordinary, beautiful homes, places where you walk into and you're like, wow, I wish I lived here. This is so lovely. This is so beautiful. I never thought to put a couch here, or I never thought to make a home like this, like the
Don't you
quintessential
think
homemaker. Yeah.
that they're very hospitable too?
Yes.
There is a spirit of hospitality about this placement where they want to make you feel at home. It's that nurturing side. I think because I know some people with this placement that their childhood wasn't that good, that they just continually seek that emotional attachment with some kind of mother figure. Usually it's a mother figure. And it makes me sad because that was kind of what they were born into, to have that. And if
Right.
they didn't get it, it's just very sad. They have attachment issues,
You're
you
right,
know.
because it is devastating, because I think these people, like you said, crave that idyllic home, that idyllic
Mhm.
family. But if this was your placement, I would ask, what is your ancestral DNA? Because 99% of the time, if you have this placement and you have a sad home life, I bet your mother or your shaping parent was wounded. And
Yeah.
I bet they were wounded by people who were also wounded. And so the wound can trickle down, and you could end up becoming, I find a lot of people with this placement become the healer of the family. They become the emotional and psychological healer and the nurse, and they are the triage unit ending that ancestral trauma.
Yes, they break the cycle.
Yeah.
Yes, every single placement on the IC has the capability to break the cycle of the ancestral DNA
Yes,
if
Connie.
it's not good. We all
Abs-
have the power to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But for these people, don't you think it feels so critical, like do or
It
die?
does.
Yeah, there's
It
an
does.
intensity. And here's what's funny about that: people don't like the people that are breaking the cycle. Let's say I'm breaking
I
the
know.
cycle of incest. Let's just pick something disgusting.
Yeah.
Nobody likes me for healing that cycle, right? The predators
No,
don't, and the
because you
predators.
bring it out into the light. It's not in the moonlight anymore. It's in the sunlight. Big difference.
Right. So the healers can be hated. You could be a hated healer, or a hated non-participatory. I'm not going to cover this up anymore. But there's
Yeah.
a big job with the fourth house, and because it's a healing house. So, and it is true. I mean, if we were working with that subject and you had Aries here, I wouldn't say you'd have no problem with it, but you would go about it very differently. Cancer
Oh,
internalizes.
yeah.
Yeah, don't you think Cancer internalizes everything, and probably could sit in the wound for too long before it found the courage to heal the ailments. It can really wallow in the wound. It can be debilitating with Cancer on the IC, because the pain could be so grievous and so great that you get emotionally paralyzed by it.
Yeah, and I love all you Cancer ICs out there, but I think it's hardest for them to climb out of that quagmire and really find what they need
And
emotionally. It's just hard.
Connie, especially if, let's talk about this, just one last little thing here, especially if the people who wrong them are their family. So I
Yeah.
hate you because you didn't love me right. You hurt me, but I can't leave you. And I am dependent on you as a little kid. And now you're dependent on me as an elder. And I'm now your grown adult. So I have to take care of you. And yet you abused me, and there can be where I can't escape my victim. I can't escape my perpetrator.
That's it. Even though it might have been that parent that hurt them so badly, they will still probably be the one at the retirement home, at the deathbed. You know, they're kind of ride or die.
Yeah. And
And
there's a loyalty with this placement.
mm-hmm,
We went kind of dark on it only because it's comfortable here, it's happy here, it can be phenomenal here. Like if you have this
sure,
placement and you can't relate to this part, we spent a little bit more time talking about the darker side of this, only because when this goes bad, it's really, really painful because it is the
I
idyllic
agree.
place.
It's where it's supposed to be on the fourth house.
Yeah.
Yes.
To self-soothe, I think a Cancer is like Taurus, where it's creature comforts, you
Yeah,
know,
me too.
laying in bed with their
With a
cozy
comfy blanket.
and taking time out to really feel their feelings. Like I think a Cancer needs time privately to feel sorry for itself just a little bit before it can go back out and brave the storm. Like it needs
Yeah.
to be in an acknowledgement of the sadness of its own pain. Their Cancers need a minute to regroup, recharge, feel sorry for myself, cry my eyes out, and then come out and face the world.
You know, their symbol, the crab, it's like it really does have to go back into the shell and, you know, regroup. They don't come back out till they're ready, is what I'm saying.
If you have Leo on your IC, the sun, your sun sign, is the ruler of your fourth house. Sometimes, and I talked a lot about this in my Leo rising video. And if you have a lot of Leo in your chart, and if you have a Leo IC, Leo rising, Leo sun, I recommend you watch the Leo playlist, even though this is the fourth house. When you have Leo here, I think that you can really be born into a household where you feel like other people are a part of royalty, or your house has some sort of element of creative, independent, enthusiastic regalness attached to it, where there's a little bit of a belief that your family is kind of special. In your ancestry, you might come from somebody or some tribe or some group or organization that was really influential in the world. And there's usually a great sense of pride. So you're born into a family that has a sense of pride about who they are. So there can feel like there's a lot of security. However, let me just say something. It can be a phony security and it can create insecurities inside you. Like, do I live up to who my family is? Do I live up to my family name? Do I live up to, my grandfather who went to Harvard and I didn't? Do I live up to? And so there can be a secret or a silent insecurity. I mean, I think if you were born a Hilton, right, and you weren't living up to the Hilton standard, this could also be really crushing. So you probably were born into a shaping parent that really thought you were extraordinary, thought you were special, maybe even wanted to show you off, probably
Yeah.
merged with your greatness and participated in your hobbies and participated in the cultivation of you being on, like you could be a pageant child, but then you don't win the pageant, or maybe you do win the pageant. And so then you carry on this specialness. But do you see there's a mixed bag here, because are you cultivating your own autonomous, individual, authentic self, or are you doing what your parents, your shaping parent wants you to do and become? So
I think this is the placement where you could easily become the black sheep of the family because you don't want to be in the pageant and you don't want to be an actor. Thank you very much. And you don't want to sing for the whole church choir. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Where
yeah,
you almost make yourself the black sheep because it goes against your grain to do some of these things.
if you're strong enough to say no, your mom
Yeah.
comes in and says, I sewed you your Halloween costume. You're going to be a marshmallow. Well, do you wear the marshmallow Halloween costume because you love your mama so much and she adores you and you don't dare say no? Or do you say, I'm going to be Barbie and I bought my outfit on Amazon. I'm not going to be marshmallow.
You tell your mom she needs to come as chocolate and you can be s'mores. I mean, I don't know what to think about that.
But this is where you can sell out, or you can gain your identity and your confidence through your parents' support, adulation, and adoration for you. It can go
Yeah,
both ways, but you
yeah,
usually feel like you were born into something kind of special. And then you, as a parent, as a shaping parent, I think this is really fun because you are you are the Disneyland mom or the Disneyland dad. You make things fun. You're very childlike. You'll probably play with your own kids. You'll probably be very influential, powerful, but you have to be careful if your kid has this placement and you're the parent. So if you want to know how your child actually is perceiving you, and you go look at their chart and they have Leo on the IC, are you, this is my question for you, and it's just a question, it's not a statement. Are you eclipsing who they really are?
Oh,
Are you trying to avoid the fact that deep inside of them, they are gay and you want them to be straight? So they live a straight life in front of you, and then they go behind the scenes and they live an authentic life. That is painful. That's where it can go kind of south.
but isn't it interesting though how there's a different sadness with each placement? Like Cancer is pretty cut and dry, I mean, to me. But Leo, not so much. It's like it's kind of hidden. Even though it's ruled by the sun, it's like you just said, it's almost like they create another identity if they can't live up to what their parents want from them, or they do that to their own child.
You
Well,
know what?
I had to be a singer, you do too.
You know, it's so interesting, Connie. This is so interesting. Oh my gosh. You saying that just gave me this thought. With this placement, okay, are you ready? You know how we talked about how the 10th house is your public face, and how the
Yeah.
fourth house is when you take off all your makeup, you take off all the sequins, you take off all your makeup. Can you guys answer this? Whoever has a Leo IC, do you have a person that you can actually take the mask off for? Because I think this placement can encourage these people to sleep with the mask on,
Yeah.
to keep the mask up at all times,
Yeah.
to have nobody that you can really pull it down for and reveal it to. Like what I was joking about Gemini, where, what is the sanctuary? And there isn't one, with Leo on the IC. And I didn't look up any famous people, but I would really like to know. This is like the person who, sleeps in her makeup so her boyfriend sees her perfect in the morning.
Yeah.
When it goes wrong, like, and if you have a Leo IC, make sure you are living in your home with people that you can shed all of that exterior off for, and you have a safe sanctuary.
Every
And then
time I think about the Leo home and it being in this placement, I just picture the mom that lets the kids color on the walls and draw pictures on the. Do you know what I'm talking about? That all right, we have this room and we where they splatter paint each other, and I don't know. It seems like it could be a lot of fun till it's not, right?
so much fun. I think you're so right. I think this is like, you'll know that you're working with a Leo IC person when you walk over to their house and they have their kids' artwork from 2 years old framed, hanging over the fireplace. And that's the
Yes.
masterpiece, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, Connie, I do. I also think their sanctuary, I think it's hard for these people to get vulnerable too, but their sanctuary, and it might sound funny, but it could be a party, or it could be, again, like Aries, taking their mind off of something. I know
Yeah.
my girlfriend who is a Leo. I don't know if she has Leo on the IC. Her dad was in the hospital and they had a traditional 4th of July party on the lake. And I said, do you just want to be alone this 4th of July and not host all the fireworks? And she was like, absolutely not. Bob, her dad, Bob would hate that. We have to have the fireworks in his honor. We'll videotape it and we'll send it over to the hospital. She wasn't going to let the party, not the show must go on. So the sanctuary became her home on the lake, hosting the party and having her friends show up and laugh. So
I love that.
yeah, I think
What
laughter.
about romance? I kind of think romance could be the haven for a Leo IC to be able to be romantic with their partner, or, you know, have a romantic dinner, or
Yes,
does that make sense? That's just kind of what I
absolutely.
picture.
Yes, like that heart connection. Also, Leo's very heart connected. That heart
Yeah.
connection with another. It doesn't have to be a big party. It could be like absolutely. Like, just take me to dinner. But see how it's not a going within. Fire signs have a very, very hard time going within. They
Yeah.
don't want to go within. Fire is, going outward like a forest fire. I think you're right, Connie, like the connection, the heart connection to another.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be watching a television show that was romantic, like a rom-com,
Yeah.
like make me feel better about my life. I'm going to go watch Bridget Jones's Diary and feel sorry for her, not me.
I love that movie.
I do too. Like, let me watch someone
Yeah.
else's miserable life so I can pretend
Uh-huh.
mine is gorgeous. And I think their last words on their deathbed is like, do my lipstick right. Get the right shade of lipstick on me if anyone's going to see my dead body.
I love that. I think they might say the show must go on.
Yes. Yes, I actually think that that's more accurate. Take all that I gave you, take all the light and all the love and everything we created and march forward with that Olympic torch
Yeah.
in your hand and go conquer your dreams and know that you can do it. And I will always live inside of you and look up at the star and in Orion's belt. And that will be me shining down on you, rooting you on from the stadium. I think it's something like that.
Yes, you nailed it.
How'd I
No,
do,
that's
Connie?
good. You did really good.
I made that monologue up on the
Yes,
spot, people, on the spot. And
that's right.
that's why you guys are subscribing to this channel. Please like and subscribe and help our channel and our family grow. And also, I really want to invite everybody to come and be a member because we do behind the scenes videos for our members and we have extra classes, Zoom parties, and you get all kinds of benefits. So you can be a superstar, super supporter and get your free gorgeous natal chart from us, or you can be a super supporter and just support our work because we love being here with you and you guys make it possible. Okay, Connie, do you want to take on Virgo?
I think Virgo is so interesting on the IC. Deep down inside, they need organization and they need routine. That's their safe place. Is the organization and routine, even if they grew up in chaos. But this could be a person that grew up in an environment where the family was very health conscious, where they were very routine, may have been very strict, but it really doesn't matter even if their family or the primary parent was strict and routine. If you have this placement, you're probably really hard on yourself because Virgo energy can be very hard on itself. There's something in them that desires perfection, where they want, and this organizational skills that they have and the way that they keep things routine and in order, that's kind of what keeps their head straight because they're ruled by Mercury. So it can be a nervous energy. It's a little different than Gemini. It's like they're very conscious about their health and they have to kind of have things in order in their head. So that either they grew up in a household that really wanted order, organization, cleanliness, was a little bit OCD, or they grew up in complete chaos and the only thing they could do to keep themselves going was to have that order, which is, I think this is a place where, if things were really bad, could be where anorexia or something like that comes in to control. It's a control thing. If my parents weren't the ideal parents and I need to get control of my life somehow, then I use food, eating, food disorder, eating disorder as a way to cope. That could be one of the ways. But the great thing about this placement is they love other people. They're service oriented. They could have come from a family background with health workers, doctors, anything in the health field, the holistic health field. Could have come from a long family line of healers, of whatever healer, whether it's a doctor in a hospital or it's an organic, the Chinese acupuncturist, it doesn't matter. They could come from a family of healers, or or they might have come from a family that just loved animals, just loved pets, because I think this placement is really amazing with animals.
Oh, Connie, I love that. Just to think about the shaping parent, I think I love how you touched on the anorexia. And I loved how you also contrasted, because I have 3 Virgos in my life and they're all pretty sloppy. I've got really
Yeah.
organized Virgos too, but their sloppiness is like shell shocking to me. But they all three have a very controlling mother. So do you find that the Virgo goes the opposite way based on in this placement on the IC?
Yeah, because they might be in their own home really sloppy, but I'll bet you anything, Meredith, that they know exactly where everything is.
Mm.
If you're looking for a freaking Walmart receipt from a year ago, I bet they can find it. It kind of doesn't matter if it's organized chaos or pure organization. In their head, it's got to be something that makes sense to the Virgo. What makes sense to their Mercury, where they can control. It's kind of a way to control their life, And if they had a controlling parent, they get their control back by God. This is a lot of control, but doing something they can
Yeah,
control. Does that make
yes,
sense?
absolutely. These people can feel that they grew up in an environment that was critical of them, and they might have even grew up
Yeah,
in an environment that gave them some anxiety around if I can even accomplish these goals or meet these expectations. I also feel that these moms or shaping parent is, like you said, orderly, critical, very finicky and particular, but yet probably dedicated in a way that could be on your nerves, like dedicated in this overly organized, overly ambitiously organized methodology that the especially the small child wants to color outside of the lines, and the
yeah,
expectation is you stay in the lines. So this I kind of am seeing this in some of the Olympians in the Paris Olympics right now, where I see so much like fanatical control that it makes
yeah,
me wonder if, and they're young kids, almost young adults, did they lose their childhood to all of this orderliness and
yeah.
dedication and
Routine,
devotion?
dedication. Yeah,
Yeah, and routine to becoming a self master, a master, and the home life supported this, but yet then they find this greatness that is completely unachievable by humans.
yeah.
Only one human in the world is this good, and it's you. I mean, if you're going to make an Olympian athlete, you probably have Virgo on the IC.
I agree. And don't you kind of think it's like the mom that won't let the child get dirty? It's like all the rest of the kids get to go play in the rain and make mud pies, and oh no, no, we don't want you
Yes.
to get dirty.
Yes.
You might get a disease. I think it's kind of the hypochondriac mom too.
Yes, it can be. And then you can be like this as a mom too. So
Yeah,
if you have this, borrow from the positive side of this where you can be in great service. You can teach what it means to do the right thing when nobody's looking. Virgo has a lot of integrity, and they usually parent
integrity.
with
Yes.
this. Yeah, they parent with this level of integrity. But giving your child, if you have this on the IC and you are the mother in your child's chart, giving your child a little more wiggle room and learning to celebrate the mistakes.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
agree.
I think it's hard because mistakes were not celebrated. Make mistakes were not celebrated growing up. Like if I spilled my milk, this is not my placement, but if I spilled my milk, I was in big trouble. Where I wish, with this placement, like the challenge is for the Virgo parent to laugh at the milk being spilled on the beautiful couch cushion, right?
Yeah,
Very hard to do. What do you
it
think
is.
their personal sanctuary is?
I think it's routine, doing the same thing. So let's say that you get up every morning and you have the same breakfast, then you go take a run. I think it's keeping their routine, just having I know, okay, the world may be coming to an end, but I know tomorrow I can go for my run and then I can stop by the fountain and meditate for a few minutes. I think that's what Virgos need, that they need to be able to come back to that routine place, that gives them solid, just being able to do that same thing every day, even if it's something little.
Yeah, I would also say, like with my Virgo person in mind, it's somehow she takes great sanctuary. This sounds funny, but like coordinating an event or being helpful to another, almost like getting, it's a little bit like that Leo watching that rom-com that I was just talking about, but it's like getting out of my problem so I help you with yours. You know, it heals her. If she is the best person, this Virgo that I have in my life, she is the best person to, if I have a problem, she'll help me solve it. And she'll help me solve it in like the best, most efficient, best possible way. I think everybody needs a good Virgo in their life, but she has Virgo on the IC. She could be dying of COVID, and she would want to still help me with my PowerPoint presentation. And it would help her heal to help me solve a genuine, meaningful problem, to be useful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think also pets are really,
yeah, and there's some sort of service in that, right? Like, oh, my animal needs me. These people really need to be
nailed it.
Yeah, they need to be needed. And when they were little kids, I feel like Virgo on the IC, they became proficient, highly efficient, very organized. They wanted to be needed, respected, and valued inside their family. So they worked for family or mother's approval. Like if I learn to, I don't know, fix your bike or fix your car, then you will always need me. It's subjective, right? And so, but I like a Virgo's house, and I like staying over at a Virgo's house, but usually I have to take your shoes off. You know, you have to be cognizant because it's probably very, very neat and tidy and clean. But I feel like a Virgo's house has everything. Like
they have every gadget, and
they have the hangover pills, they have the Advil, Excedrin, and Tylenol. What's your choice? What size Band-Aid do you want? Do you want a little Band-Aid? Over at my house, I got a Band-Aid for you, but I guarantee you it's probably not the size you want. You know, I got a big old Band-Aid, you know, and and you just wanted a little one. Like the Virgo has every size Band-Aid. I mean, they take care of, you know, like stupid me. I signed up for my child's yearbook, and then for whatever reason I closed out the screen before the order went through, so my child didn't get the school yearbook. Like worst mom on the planet. I don't have Virgo on the IC. The Virgo IC parent is like there for the PTA, orders the yearbook, signs up to volunteer as the chaperone on the bus, you know, is so highly involved. The child is probably like, Mom, really, do you have to be the school chaperone again?
Don't go on this field trip this time. Yeah, I hear you.
They don't close the window before the yearbook is processed. Yeah, they're the good goods. I also think they can be a tiny bit prudish, like they might be a little bit prude with their kids. Don't you think?
Yeah, because I always think if you have a Virgo Mars, it's the lady or man on the street with the freak in the bed Mars. So yeah, I do think that.
Yeah, they can be a little bit prude. Like maybe the birds and the bees conversation is super, super short, or not at all.
Or not at all. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, why do you need me to tell you? You got friends. No, I'm kidding. Okay, Libra. I have this placement. Oftentimes you have a mother who is artistic and diplomatic. There's usually like a veil of kindness, or there is just a real kindness, but this is a mother who's probably trying to balance two opposing things at all times. For my mom, it was trying to balance her own children with her stepchildren, her giant work with, you know, her nurturing side. And I'll tell you, these mothers try to present a balanced environment, a balanced home, but it's usually pretty rocky, right? But I'll also tell you that this is probably a shaping parent that enforces or values and embodies high aesthetics. Things need to look good, present well. Beauty is important, but I wouldn't just say beauty. I would say peace and harmony and kindness is promoted in this household. But they really are trying to create harmonizing effects, or there is a desire for harmony in the home, or you're grown up in an environment that is promoting taste or culture or art or aesthetics. And I will tell you that is really the truth of my home. Like I grew up with both my mom and my biological dad literally driving down the road or pumping music through the house. That was either Beethoven, Bach, Vivaldi, Mozart. That was my environment. I'm like, why are we listening to this classical music. And they were like, because this is tranquility. This is peacefulness. Little did I know they were cultivating my North Node in Taurus. I was just like, can we put on Michael Jackson? I mean, am I allowed to
Yeah.
change the channel? And my dad's like, no, 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 no. This is Bach. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. And, my daughter gets in the car and the channel is always on her Spotify playlist. I wouldn't dare do that to my parents. I tried, it didn't work. I drove in traffic to the classical musicians. And in a weird way, now I really appreciate that, right? Like that's a gift because now I have this as a memory, but it's just kind of funny that that's just one example. But one thing I'll say, the darker side of this, Connie Jo, and maybe you can speak to it. There's a promotion, right? You're growing up in an environment to keep things fair. My parents are extraordinarily fair, both of them,
That's
all three
my
of them.
word for Libra, fair.
Yes, totally fair. They've let me read the will in advance and it's divvied up exactly fair. And I'm like, I thought I was special. No, you're not special. You're one of four. You ain't that special. You told me all my life I was special. Thought I was going to be really special at the end. Nope. Nope. Anyways, it's all this fairness. It is so fair. It is frustrating for that special child because it's all fair, which feels so unfair, right? Because
Yeah.
it feels so unfair. But I was going to say that it's usually pretty rocky. And I think it might be because it's paradoxical. For example, if your life lesson is sobriety, God is sure going to show you what drunk looks like. So if your family life lesson is balance, well, they're going to sure show you what a rocky roller coaster of a ride looks like. And so there's a rockiness here because you're dealing with, it sounds funny because this is Venus's house, but you're dealing with conflict all the time, and how to deal diplomatically with great fairness and integrity with this conflict. Do you know what I mean? Like you're negotiating the deals.
You know what? Yeah. It makes me think of the fact that Saturn has its joy in Libra. There's a reason for that. It's because of the strict standards of Libra, that they want things to be fair and just. The scales must balance. And that's why Saturn loves it there. So there is a rockiness. It's not all just Venus and Bach and Beethoven. It gets rocky.
It gets really rocky. And when it's not fair, things really explode. And I'll also tell you, this is going to sound a little bit funny, but I think it's because it's an air sign, Connie. There's a little bit of a detachment with this placement. I think you grow up in an environment where if it looks good, we are good. Like if it looks like you're getting the good grades, then we must be getting the good grades when really I'm failing 3 classes. Yeah. Do you know, there's a little bit of a detachment here. I don't know how to describe it perfectly. I don't think the family is overly involved, so big mistakes and you can get off the train track pretty easily because there's not a ton of Virgo monitoring. You're not monitoring. She looked good. She her eyes definitely didn't look red. Her breath didn't smell. I'm sure she brushed her teeth, right? Like it looks like it's all working out, so it must be. So as a parent with this placement, you can be blindsided by what is really going on in your family. You can just be blindsided because it looked good to you. So as a child, you can feel that like, what? Mommy was having an affair with who? No. So there can be a catastrophic crushing blow to our family, right? Because it looked like something. It looked good on the surface, but underneath other things were happening. And it can also be that way for the parent. Like my child did what? Yeah. My child did that. My child was the bully. None of those things happened in my life. I'm just giving extreme examples of how there was.
I see what you're saying.
There can be a shell shocker with this placement. And so you got to go look at Venus and what is Venus doing?
Libra, even on the IC, it's still a cardinal sign and it wants that mirror. It wants partnership. And possibly you grew up, and I'm not saying you grew up, possibly a Libra IC grew up in a household where the parents were so into each other, they didn't pay as much attention to the child.
Interesting. Right.
I mean, and I don't know, but that's not my placement either. But I'm just saying that I can see how that would happen.
It's so funny. Listen to this, Connie, just in my family dynamic. So my mother and my brother both have the same IC, Gemini. And then my father and me, we both have that same Libra IC. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
here
it
we are
is.
as a family. And one of the things that's really interesting, because I can see it very easily with his Libra IC, but he has his moon in Taurus in the 10th house, is he and his mother both played the piano. And his mom was a painter. And so
Wow.
see how you can see your parent as an artist or high aesthetics. His mother was a painter in Chicago, and she was a really good painter. He brought her home from Vietnam. He brought her home silk. She had never had a silk anything. And he said, I want you to go get a dress designed. And I have a picture of her in that silk dress that she had made from this silk that he brought home from Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
And they met kind of in this Libra world. But one thing he always said about his mom, this is the cutest story in the world. She's on her deathbed, so I can do this one for real, right?
Okay.
So he has Libra on the IC. I have chills. This story is so funny. And he goes to the hospital and he says, Mama, is there any last requests you have? Is there anything you want? A last meal? Anything? And she said, yes, there is, David. And he said, anything you want, Mama. What is it that you want? And she said, well, I've never, ever seen a Playboy magazine. Do you think you could go get me one?
Are you kidding me?
Because it was too gritty, it was too raunchy, and she was Libra on the IC teaching Bach and Beethoven. They played classical music together. He's like, I think I can help you out with that one.
Oh,
And
that is hilarious.
so he came back, and this is so funny. I don't know if this is totally true, but he told me this, and he is Gemini. He came back, and I said, did you bring her the Playboy magazine? He said, Mare, they were all out of Playboy, so I had to get her Hustler.
There's a big difference. Okay, yes, I know that. But yes, there's a big difference.
Isn't that funny? And she said, oh my.
I bet she did. Oh gosh, that
Okay,
is
let's,
so cute.
and that's our segue, dun dun dun, into
Ah,
Scorpio.
Scorpio. Of course, I think you need to look where your Pluto is and also where your Mars is, as Mars was the ruler of Scorpio before Pluto was found. But Scorpio on the IC can be, you could have grown up in a family that had some control issues, power struggles. It could have been with your in between your parents, or there could have been power struggles and jealousy with you. But there's usually some kind of deep struggle with power and control. And I mean, this can be regarding money as well. You know, the control of money. A Scorpio on the IC has to learn how to not be weak. It's like that's kind of what they're taught, that you have to be strong, you have to be independent, you have to keep that poker face. You can't be weak, because if you're weak, somebody's going to take advantage of you. You will lose your power and you will lose your control if you are weak. So a Scorpio IC comes off very strong, but they may have spent a childhood having to deal with a death of a loved one, with divorce. They could have dealt with a lot as a child and dark secrets. I'll tell you what, if there was ever a person that can dig into the ancestry, and I think Scorpio enjoys digging for stuff, no matter what it is. They want to find the secrets and the juicy stuff, and bless their little hearts, they can do it too. I mean, if I wanted an investigator, I would hire a Scorpio. I would, because they can get into that juicy part and they can find the secrets. But here's the thing. Somebody very special told me just a few minutes ago that you might be the confessional for the family. You might be the one that gets to hear all the secrets. I don't think it's always easy having to live with the family secrets.
Kind of also the power struggles. I think there
Yeah.
can be, yeah, family with even,
Jealousy, power struggles.
yeah, jealousy and rage and power struggles and problems. And so this person is raised in some volatility that I think is like under the surface, right? It doesn't always, it's not always revealed. It's a little bit like that Libra, only it's not under the guise of perfection or harmony or peace or love or beauty.
No.
There's an intensity, like a pressure cooker feel with this one. It's kind of a little bit like landmines. You don't dare want to make a mistake. You don't want to get that vulnerable. You're absolutely right, Connie. And the confessional piece is really true, where it might not be where you are the person going out searching for the secrets, except I do like that ancestry comment that you made. I think that's really
Yeah.
true. Like you want to understand your past, your heritage, your
And your
DNA.
power. That's where your power comes from. And you can't
Yes.
be weak, right? Anyway.
Absolutely. But I do think if you're a healthy person, your family members come to you as sort of a stable resource, a stable place to shed their masks and be vulnerable with you. So you get the family's you hold the family's vulnerability. I also think this person with Scorpio I see is the family transformer.
Yes.
They will
I'm
change
glad
their
you said that.
family. And they might do it through ritual. They might do it through the psychic world. They might do it through the occult. They might do it through stretching their family's psychological awareness. Like, they
Yeah.
might do it through spirituality. Like, I want to debunk some of these closed-minded old ways, and I want to show you. I'm thinking this person could, not necessarily, but could move somebody, a family, from a religious belief system into a more spiritual belief system. That's a better way to say that.
No,
Like
I think you're right about that. There's
creating,
that
yeah,
transformation of Pluto there
yeah,
where
creating change in the
mhm,
family. This is the change maker.
it's fixed. I mean, this is like Taurus. It's Taurus's opposite. It's a fixed sign. So you're probably growing up in an environment where there hasn't been a change in a long time in your family. That things, the power plays have been the same, the control issues have been the same, and everybody's just lived with what grandma wants because she said that's what she wants, and she's gonna have it. And on her deathbed, she'll tell you where the body's hidden. I mean, it's like the things can be changed.
I also think with this placement, the child could be born from very unusual circumstances.
I thought about that.
Maybe the mother had this child out of wedlock, or is having this child from a person that they're not in relationship with, or a relationship gone wrong, or you can let your mind run rampant. Even a child could be born in unfortunate circumstances where the mother is wondering, should I keep this child or not keep this child, give this child up to adoption? Should my
Yeah.
mother raise this child? Should I give my child to my sister? So there's some sort of loss going on with this placement, oftentimes during the birth. I don't want anybody to feel unwanted, but oftentimes there is some sort of dance with loss, devastation, destruction, divorce. And oftentimes the child is growing up in a family where they lose a shaping parent.
They can have an early childhood death, a death of a loved one while they're still a child. I just see this veil of secrecy around the Scorpio I see, where it's always like there's a deep family secret going on, and the child, it doesn't necessarily know what's going on. You were so right in saying they can be the one that transforms everything
Yes,
and actually makes things right if they were wrong.
absolutely. And another way to interpret that is the child grows up into an adult, holds all those family secrets, right? They become the confessional, Scorpio I see, until the parent dies. And then when the parent or the parents die, then that child who is now an adult is free to speak and free to be after the death of the parents.
Oh, that's interesting.
So,
Yeah.
for example, I had this client who had this placement, and he was in an arranged marriage. He would not divorce until both his parents were dead, and then he would live his rightful life. And I was
Well,
like,
that's very Scorpio, though.
yeah, right. I don't want to upset the power in dynamic in this family lineage. So I'll hold this secret until my parents pass away, or I'll hold their secret until they pass away, and then I'll write the telltale book.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. When I see this placement, when I'm reading a chart, one of the first things I think is not just secrecy, but I think there's power. It is. It's Scorpio is full of power. That's probably where they get their solace is they need time by themselves. I think the Scorpio IC needs to be by themselves sometimes to let their emotions transform, to feel what's going on with themselves, because there can be a lot of deep wounds. I think they'd rather take care of it by themselves, on their own, alone. That's how I see them taking care of those childhood wounds, by going into
Absolutely.
their own inner world, having alone time, being allowed to let things transform by themselves.
Oh, absolutely, Connie. And I also think this alone space is scary for other people to allow them to go there. So let's say
Yes.
they want to isolate, right? Well, oftentimes the world is texting you, calling you, worried sick about you, and you need 3 to 4 solid days in your own solitary confinement to just get right. And everybody's
Process.
worried sick about you, right? And so you can never even get that time that you need because the whole world is demanding something of you. And that is really hard for Scorpio on the IC because they need more alone time than what today's world.
Is willing to give.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
because they
agree.
do become integral. They become very powerful and very integral in their families for whatever role they're playing. And
Hmm.
so to be MIA for 4 days is worrisome. So I think this is hard for Scorpio. I see they can't ever check out all the way because, like you said, they're fixed. They're a crux. They're very strong. They're the cement oftentimes in their family. Not always. Sometimes it depends where the moon is, of course. Maybe the Scorpio I see is not into creating harmony and could give two flying squirrels if everybody's missing them or not. They could be really, really, really strong that way. Go off and Cat Stevens it, change my name and live in a cave and no longer sing anymore. And I don't care what the world says. I wish I had his ability to detach like that sometimes.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to detach the way I think that they probably need to detach to process things. Scorpio eliminates waste. They rule the part of the body that eliminates waste. They are the ones that makes the transformation by taking out or getting out or exposing all the shit so that they can be clean again, new, transformed.
Right. No, I like it. I like it. It's great. Okay. So should we move on to Sagittarius?
I think so. Yes.
Sagittarius in the fourth house. Wow. I think that is a whole bunch of everything. I kind of find this to have a joyful feeling about it. And as you guys are seeing, there's always a paradox, but you probably grew up in a household where there was just a real sense of free spiritedness and maybe even adventures and open minded. But I would also say this is probably an intellectual family structure where this is on the mental, the mind, the teacher student, the learning access, Gemini and Sag. As a child, you probably grew up with your shaping parent or both parents or one parent as an intellect in some way, or somebody who
Mhm.
really pondered bigger questions in life, the meaning of life, or, Plato said, and I'm kind of being funny. I mean, maybe they don't quote Plato, but they would live by a strong belief system. And so you probably felt what that belief system was, whether that belief system wrapped around philosophy or courage or inspiration or motivation, but your parents could have been or probably wanted to be a teacher, a guide, a visionary, an advisor to you. I don't know. It depends on what your sun sign is if you appreciate that. One of the interesting things is with the fourth house here in Sagittarius, sometimes these people grow up in a indoctrinated into a religious or a spiritual or kind of a self-righteous political environment. And they are expected to carry on that belief system. So here's the paradox. If you don't, what happens, right? These kids, or if you're a parent, it's very interesting because I don't want to say you're just hands off like a Sagittarius. You're just too busy, so you're not aware, because that is not true. But you give a lot of leash for the you were given a lot of leash, or you give a lot of leash for the child to make its own mistakes. But I think these parents, as a parent, you could have a mother that's quite fanatical, but isn't necessarily a helicopter parent, right? There's a strength. It's almost like well, in baseball, like you are the hitting coach. You're not the main coach, meaning you're coaching from behind the scenes a little bit, because there is a lack of desire or awareness to do Virgo management, right? We're doing big picture beliefs. We're checking in on bigger issues in life. We're not necessarily in the routine of, did I make you a breakfast with everything you need inside of it? I'm counting on you to make your own breakfast, but I got you around the bigger issues in life. Does you know how they say we do life in chunks, little chunks, medium chunks, and big chunks? Sagittarius parents as a big chunker.
No doubt. I agree. I mean, but Sag is ruled by Jupiter, of course, and Jupiter is the planet of optimism and expansion. But think about this, Meredith, when it's taken too far, if you put Jupiter in the chart of the Titanic, Jupiter did not help. It made things where it was like blew it up and made it bigger. So
Yes.
sometimes Jupiter can go a little bit too far, like that Sagittarius I see might get a little out of control sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that this parent like will focus on, or you'll be raised in an environment where you gained or gleaned wisdom and knowledge and life lessons and spiritual beliefs and philosophy and life's messages, and your shoes might have had holes in them, you know, and
Yeah.
we forgot to get you a backpack for your school supplies.
What if you have a ton of Taurus in your chart and you just look at your parents and say, prove it. You're
Mhm.
telling me all this, prove it. They want
Oh,
something concrete. And the parents are like, oh, but no. You see what I mean?
yeah, it's almost like when you're indoctrinated into a belief system, and you can see as a child as you grow up that the belief system that you grew up in does not really benefit your life to the degree they said it would.
Yeah.
I think of a bunch of people who escaped sort of being indoctrinated into religions that just did not benefit their soul's purpose, and
Yeah.
they go back to their family home and they can't relate. One thing about the Sagittarius fourth house is you will leave the family home. You will leave, you will
Oh,
go
yes.
explore, you will understand culture and people and diversity in a very large way. Now your parents could have indoctrinated you into a belief system that was far more narrow-minded. Even though you got Sag there, you're the one that left. You're the
Yes.
one that felt like your home life was too small. I don't want to live on the country road in, West Virginia. I think that's a John Denver song.
It is.
Country home, take me home,
Home. Yeah.
mountain mama, West Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah. And Sagittarius on the IC, I don't know, wants to go live in Zimbabwe and wants to go to Peru and wants to try Rio de
Yeah.
Janeiro on for a weekend. And so you can outgrow your mama. You can outgrow your shaping parent. Probably your parents tried to give you a lot. They probably tried to give you a lot. Just think Sag is a lot
Yes.
of wisdom. There also could be, I find, a foreign aspect to this. So your mom and dad aren't from the same culture, or you are first generation in the country that you're living in, or you left your country and your parents still live there. It could even be that you outgrew what they believe in. I have a Romanian client who is gay and had to leave Romania just so she could go live her authentic self. She goes back home and she has to pretend that she's not gay back in Romania. So it's something where you outgrow this family home. And then let's talk about how Sagittarius IC would find that inner peace, that self-soothing, that way to reflect within and to make meaning of all that has happened.
I think that they probably try to see what is the lesson in all of this. What have I learned from this? How can I grow from this? I think that's a very Sag way of handling that.
I do too. I think searching for
What do you think?
this. I think that is so good, Connie. Searching for that silver lining in the bleak darkness is the savings grace of Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Now, I also think that they can also detach. So they can get the lesson not even being at home. So they can find their sanctuary and the truth. I think you're kind of saying their subjective truth of the matter at hand, the problems or whatever is wrong. And they can find it on the road. They can find it out there in the world. They don't have to be
Yeah. Yeah.
like, yeah, like the Cancer or the Taurus at home in their sanctuary. Because Sagittarius, I see, I'll show you where the home is. It's not a building, it's not a grand palatial palace. It's literally right here. Home is where the heart is for a Sag. So
There's a gypsy soul within the Sag.
yeah, the, the home in the sense of home is inside the self's adventures, the self's pursuit of truth and happiness. And so
Yeah.
it's sort of the backpacker's guide to, to life. This
Yeah.
the Sag I see. And if you are a Sag I see, do you travel for a living? Did you backpack around, Europe or Australia? Does your house actually look like? And don't you think also these people move a lot?
I do.
You might live in an apartment and pack up. And so I think they live kind of light. And Sag, I see, is also not materialistic. They kind of want to be able to come and go easily.
Yes. Because freedom, even for the IC being Sagittarius, freedom is like the key word. I want to be free to roam. Yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps the parents gave them that freedom
Mm-hmm.
and they passed that on to their children, the freedom to roam and be that free spirit. I mean, that's the way I'd like to think of it.
I think it's true. I think it's like, come home before dark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not where are you
Exactly.
going? Who are you with? It's, yep, just come home before dark if you're home before dark. Like that's the big chunks.
Yes. I love it. Yeah.
And the Virgo is like, where are you going and whose house? And do I know that person? And what is the address? And okay, do you want to move on to Capricorn?
I think with Capricorn on the IC, you probably grew up in a home where, first of all, elders were very revered. The grandparents were very revered. Mom and dad played somewhat of a special role, but also career and ambition was a big part of your childhood. You may have come from a working family. And of course, most families are working families. But what I'm saying is, you could have come from parents that are very ambitious, where maybe mom and dad both worked. Grandma might have even kept you while you were little, so mom and dad could work. But there's an ambition there and there's a structure there because Capricorn is structure. It's ruled by Saturn, father time. And I think when you have your a Capricorn IC, you do take your family very seriously. I mean, this could be the person that takes care of the elderly when on their deathbed, that finds them a retirement home, that takes care of their parents just like their parents took care of their grandparents. There's a lot of legacy in this Capricorn I see where they all take care of each other because I think heritage and parents are very revered when you have a Capricorn. I say you are taught to be respectful to your elders.
And
It's
don't you think there's a patriarchal aspect to this, like attachment to father's lineage because of Saturn?
Yeah, I do.
And
I sure do.
I also think these people are the children, and as a parent you will teach what hard work looks like. Be practical with your resources, your finances, your time, your money. Be reliable, be your word.
Yes.
Don't lie to me. Just tell me the
Oh,
truth.
that's a big one. Be your word. I think that I think with Capricorn here, there's a strong sense of duty to the family. Be support. It's like I feel like it's the building blocks. There's a big support system with having the Capricorn IC. As strict as those parents might be, And as hardworking as they might be working so freaking hard so their children will have all of the tools they need to get the education they need so they don't have to work as hard. I mean, I think that's kind of a Capricorn mentality. So then as a child of that environment, I mean, do you take that environment and you're the same type of hard worker? Or do you think, man, I've had enough of this crap. I just want to play?
Right. I
I don't
also
know.
feel like when you have IC on the Capricorn on the fourth, I kind of feel like your emotional needs can get starved.
Be
The psychological,
neglected.
yeah, neglected. The psychological needs could get neglected, because those things are not quite as important as the pragmatics of holding up this house and creating a legacy that I can then pass on to you, my child. And so we don't have time right now to wallow
Yeah,
in the emotions of your heart. Like, get on with it and move on and get tough and be strong. And we're trying to build an empire here. We're trying to build
I
something.
agree.
Don't slow
That's
it.
you nailed it. We're trying to build something here. Do I don't have time
Yeah.
to let I mean it's kind of sad though because I do think emotions can be neglected on this part of it with Capricorn there that the child might be what if you're being bullied and the parents are like their attitude is more, well, what did you do,
Hmm.
instead of what can I do to help?
Yeah. What did you do to deserve it?
Yeah.
Or they have a very pragmatic approach to solving, if they do believe the child, solving the problem. Well, let's go talk to the principal. Let's talk to your teacher. Let me make a phone call. And it's like, no, I don't want any of that. I just wanted like a
You to
soft,
listen.
yeah, soft shoulder to lean into. And so this is like really get your shit together. Get your shit together part of the chart if you've got Capricorn on the fourth house. I mean, I think there's an intimidation here because there's such a giant patriarchy. And if your moon is here, or if your primary parent or only parent is a mother, I think there's a respect for that shaping parent that comes in like a father,
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
and it can be quite intimidating. There can be an
Yeah.
intimidation factor here, where I don't dare not do with this authority figure. The authority figure is usually the shaping parent, and there's a sternness and a strictness with this. But the results are, I mean, I think these people come out highly accomplished. They come out with a
I think
lot
they
of
come out respectful.
respectful, yeah, because I think they probably grew up in strict and a little bit of judgmental or unyielding, like, we're not bending the rules here, like what you were saying. You didn't get the Camaro,
Yeah,
you
I didn't get it.
that's black or white. Nope, you're not getting the Camaro now, and you never got the Camaro ever in your whole life, right?
Nope.
Yeah. And there's a teaching through, I think, disciplinary action with this. It's very
Yeah.
much like Aries in the sense of patriarchal, and I'm going to teach you through disciplinary action. I mean, there
Yeah,
is
I agree. It is very disciplined.
yeah, consequences and punishment if you're bad, rewards that you've earned. Good job, you truly earned that trophy. We're not passing out trophies for everyone, people. Right? Not everybody gets a trophy. Yeah,
That's it. I think that having respect for the elderly and elders is really important with this. I see that because not everybody is respectful of their elders anymore.
make the
Capricorn kind of
time.
keeps that traditional order of things.
Yeah. What do you think the last words on the deathbed for Capricorn would be? For Capricorn IC.
Make sure you follow my will to a T.
Do as I say. Be in debt to no one.
Yeah.
Financially, spiritually, sexually, be in debt,
Yeah.
be in debt to no one, meaning like pay those dues, like don't let anybody hold it over you.
I was just going to say there's a Bible verse, and I don't know what verse it is, but it says, "Oh no man nothing but love," and I like that because yeah, I owe you
That's
love. That's all I owe you.
that's really good. That's fitting for Capricorn, right?
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Are we on to the rebellious one? Oh, I mean Aquarius.
This one's really interesting. Now, I want to say something about this because I know a few people who have this placement, and they're not really like the definitions that the books and the research say. And that's because of the planets that they have inside this house. So the planets that you have inside this fourth house really do matter, and you have to pay attention to that. For example, a lot of times people think if you have Aquarius on the IC, you come from a very cold and detached household. Well, if you have your Venus or your moon or your Neptune there, that might not be true. It might just be kind of a different kind of household. So I just want to say that we probably should have said that in the beginning, that the planets do shape this house too. But with this house, you might have grown up in a family situation that was different from everybody else in the neighborhood, everybody else in your country or your city. You might have grown up in an unconventional, even eccentric, unique, or different way. You might have grown up in a way where you could have been shy or embarrassed or proud of those differences. And so you felt like your life was unique or unusual. And I think as a little kid, you might not notice. As a teenager, you're highly aware of it. And as an adult, you might actually revel in it. So there's different evolutions of this, but you might see that your shaping parent is emotionally detached in some way, or distant, or gives you a personal freedom that other kids didn't have. The parenting style is unique. You're probably going to be a unique parent in some way, or have a unique child. The child could be unique or different. Also, don't you think, Connie, with this placement, the shaping parent eventually becomes a friend to their kids?
Yes.
I see that here. There's a friendship that's kind of early on. What else would you say about this placement?
I think that there were probably a lot of unique things going on. They could have had some really unique belief systems. I mean, being ruled by Uranus, I think things probably were a little bit crazy in the household. That kind of anything goes. But at the end of the day, I think that these parents, the primary parent, was supportive, because, supporting their child in his or her uniqueness, like you said, when they're an adult, being able to revel in that and enjoy being unique. And I think that just think about this. These could be parents that are super technically ahead of everything. I mean, this could be the family that had a smart house before smart houses were smart houses. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This could be Elon Musk's 9 children.
Yes. Yes.
But you see how it can be aloof but genius,
Exactly.
because also this parent, even the child, can be extraordinarily busy. Aquariuses, they are, oh my God, they're like Geminis. They are just so busy. I don't know too many of them that relax. They go.
And there's an intelligence there too, that it's kind of like, I think, a Gemini a bit, because they really want to learn about everything, but they are fixed. So when they've made up their mind about something, that's kind of the end of the road. If mom or dad says no to this, sorry, kid, you're not getting it, whatever that is.
But don't you think that the child in this environment is promoted, or the environment promoted the child's individuality and walk your own path, and you can do whatever you want. You don't have to go to college. There isn't a cookie cutter. You go be whatever you want to be, whatever that looks like. We can deal with it. You can be gay, straight, trans. It doesn't matter. You can have a baby early. I'm not going to disown you. You don't have to believe what I believe. You don't have to do my religion. Right? Don't you think there's an openness here? Yeah.
It's like that in a way. I usually think of Aries as the trailblazer, but in a way, Aquarius is as well, because they take a different path. They take the path the harder path. They might decide, well, we're going to go up this mountain, but we're going to wear these special mountain climbing shoes they're unique and different, and they blaze new trails.
Absolutely. And new intellectual trails. There can be a little bit of a stubborn, nonconformist rebellion by the child within the family too. And the child may have learned, I have to be unafraid to be myself, because I certainly don't want to be these people.
Mm-hmm.
There might be inner thoughts like that. And also, I have to sort of cut off my emotions a little bit so I can manage them. And they were taught this in some way. Maybe this was mimicked by the parents, like the parents didn't get real emotional. And they might even believe, it's probably not true, but the child might even believe my parents have no feelings. You know, my parents are tough, they're strong, they're intellectual, they're smart, they're not sensitive, when that is not even the truth. Remember what we said at the very beginning of this video. And if you're just chiming in here, oh my God, go listen to the whole first part of this video where we talk about what the fourth house is anyway. This is just the perception, right? This is just your perception of your parent or your child's perception of you. This isn't the truth. You might be the most sensitive Pisces in the world, and your child, as a parent, and your child has this Aquarius IC, and they think you have no feelings at all. You're like, what? I'm in my bedroom crying every night because you're detached. So are you the one that's emotionally detached? Did you learn that? Did you mimic that? Are your parents that? Like, if you have an Aquarius IC, I really want to know. I want to know your story about the truth and your perception. Now, what's so funny is this house is subjective. So we really do believe our perception is the truth. But if you could see it 10,000 feet above from God's perspective, what would God say? Right?
Yeah. That's really interesting. I like what you said about that though, because you know how when we're young and we're in grade school and we think like the third grade teacher or fourth grade teacher, they can do no wrong. It's almost like we put them on a pedestal. Well, we kind of do the same thing with our parents or whoever raised us. They're on this pedestal where they can do no wrong until we realize that they're really just people. They may be our parents, but they're still just humans. And we realize that they have real feelings and truly the I see is our perception, not the truth.
And that invites me to say this, Connie. If you have Aquarius IC, that is so beautiful, Connie, because it's like you're kind of being invited to have empathy for your family. Look at your parents through more sensitivity. You know, I'll tell you this little secret. So when I was in seventh grade, my teacher, her name was Mrs. Domke. So it was quite funny because we took roll by our last name. So it was Fromke Domke. It was hilarious. Anyways, she was out there. I mean, she was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She was my homeroom teacher. We found out that in her coffee cup, she drank vodka.
Wow.
We found out. And the seventh grade kids were so cruel about her. And do you know, I felt so sorry for her. She was really, really goofy. I mean, she wore bright pink lipstick and she lined her lips like way up here. She drank the vodka out of the coffee cup. And I did have to suffer for a whole year with Fromke Domke. I mean, it was bad though, right? Like I didn't even want to have empathy, but my whole heart broke for her. And I was just thinking to myself, who is her husband? Who is her mom? Who is her dad? When I was little, I was like 11 years old. 12. And I just felt so sorry for her. And the other kids threw spitballs at her, you know, Gen X, whatever. Aww. And I just saw her, did you say like through the human eyes? Through the human eyes. And so I don't know where her placement was. I didn't do astrology back then, but she was really an oddball eccentric. And the kids wanted to tell the principal on her for the vodka. And I was like, let her drink her vodka. She's doing her lips like that. She probably needs her vodka for some reason. Let the lady. That is very true. Let the lady have her vodka. Yeah. And who cares? And they're like, well, isn't she supposed to be teaching us? I'm like, are you really learning anyway? I don't exactly. Think so. You're not learning shit. Okay, let's end it with Pisces.
All righty. So with Pisces, really and truly, your home is a place of refuge and escape. However you want to frame it, it's a place. I know that I always want to be near water, and I have that Pisces. I see being near water is really important to me. And I think that this I see usually grows up in a somewhat spiritual household where and it could be religious or it could be spiritual, but you are taught about God or a God usually if you have Pisces on the IC. And but your roots, you know, this is about our ancestry. They may seem mysterious. I mean, it's ruled by Neptune. It's kind of nebulous it has no boundaries. It's kind of everywhere. So you really don't feel rooted when you have a Pisces, I see. It's like it feels like you're floating. Home could be anywhere. I mean, there is a sense of not feeling rooted, even though you may have parents that are definitely rooted, and you may have family history that is very important, but there is just this sense of no boundaries. And I think that this IC placement escapes in the home. And there could be problems with addiction in this placement as well. Not necessarily with the person that has the placement, but possibly the people around them. You know, maybe the parents. When you grow up, when you have children, you may have children that have some issues with addiction, because Neptune truly is the planet that it's deceptive. You're very spiritual, and you're hearing from the universe or hearing from God, however you want to frame that. But it's hard. It's like it's a sensitive placement. It's hard to take some of the stuff the real world offers. So you go find an escape for it.
Right.
Sort
And
of.
Connie, don't you think that also these people could be born with a sort of an internal feeling of, I'm not from Alabama, I'm from this cosmic place,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
They might have
Completely.
yeah, they might have a cosmic awareness immediately,
I
like
think you're right.
I'm a star child. I'm not from Mississippi.
And I think that there is this natural love of music. If there is a way for a Pisces IC to soothe themselves and soothe that inner child, I think it's music is their primary way. Music and water are the ways that they can soothe their soul. And the parents in this case, I mean, it's kind of nebulous, Meredith. I think this is also can be a family that has really doesn't have boundaries.
Yeah.
That perhaps you didn't have any privacy as a child, or you had too much privacy. It's like there doesn't seem to be set boundaries with this placement. And sometimes as a child, you need boundaries.
Mm-hmm. There could also be, you know how you were talking about escapism, there could be a really big artistic piece to your childhood or your parent if you have Pisces on the IC. Like there could be some sort of creative, imaginative, artistic talent by your parents or yourself. I find Neptune can create art. I also think that this is a very self-sacrificial placement. So the
Yeah.
mother could have sacrificed her own identity, her own talent, her own artistry, her own life for her children. The child receiving that can feel guilt and shame if my mother
Yeah.
gave up everything for me. So
Yeah.
as a parent, you ask yourself, does my child feel guilt and shame? Am I creating that in some way, or am I too self-sacrificing?
Right.
Because I think the boundaries question made me think of that. It's not that there's no boundaries because we don't want there to be boundaries. It's because there's enablement, and enablement creates
Yes.
no good boundaries. Like come home when you
You're
want.
right.
There's enablement. It's hard for the
Yeah.
parent to say
You're
no.
right.
It's hard for the kid to know where the no is.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Like the no is not clear.
These people also pick up on the energy around them easily. It's like because if this is kind of the seat of the soul, they come into this world and pick up on that, on energy around them, good or bad. And that, is kind of a shapeshifter for their life. And that's the reason I think Pisces, more than any other sign, needs the escape, because they feel things, and cancers don't get your feelings hurt, but they feel things in a different way. It's like their empathy and ability to feel other people's feelings can be really overwhelming.
Absolutely. And don't you feel there can be an unpredictability like the Aquarius. There can be an unpredictability and instability. Like I can't
Yeah.
count on the people, either one of the shaping parents, I can't count on them to be on time or to pick me up, or if then
Yeah.
so you can create an insecurity and you stop counting on the people that you love in some way.
Yeah.
But That's if it goes a little south. But if it goes well, I think there is an unconditional love that is unparalleled.
I agree with that. There
And
is.
there's a your problem is my problem, and now it's our problem, and we're going to solve this problem together, because if you're not right, I'm not right. And that's to parent to child, or child to parent, or household, and the family can also be so glued together that there's an enmeshment and the identities become one. That's a lot like Cancer there too. All the water signs do that. They enmesh. And so what do you think the words are, the last words are on the deathbed here?
Just remember, I love you and always will, and
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, I love you like unconditionally, infinitely, and look for my spiritual messages because I'll never leave you. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Scorpio is probably the one that would say, I'll be back, because they will be.
I'll haunt you.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. This has been
huge.
Wow. Yeah.
It makes me look forward to the third house. Get us out of this cave, Connie.
I'm telling you, it's like it went deeper than I was expecting.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
We've been crabs crawling at the bottom of the cave in the ocean, like, whoa, we haven't seen light in an hour and a half. Hopefully my editor, Conowin, will be editing this down. All right, Connie. Well, this was wonderful. I hope everybody loved it. Please like and subscribe, join, come learn with me in Barcelona. Shop at shopsoulnavigation.com to get your gorgeous natal chart, all your reports. Book a reading with Connie Jo at soulnavigation.com or me. And we love you. We'll see you next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Bye, Connie.
Bye, Mare.
See you later, alligator.